everybody, what is up? It is Jiwon and welcome back to my channel. Okay, so for today's video, I have a story time, and of course, as I start to record, I have no battery. BRB. Okay, we're back. So to start off the story time, y'all know that quote from Forrest Gump, and he's like, life's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. That's true, because there are like all the varieties: milk chocolate, dark chocolate, finding out that your husband is cheating on you. I'm not laughing because it's funny. That's probably the most awful way to find out. It's probably going to ruin chocolate for you for the rest of your life. Laughing is like my fight or flight response. That is exactly how Maggie Walsh found out that her supposedly devoted husband of 7 years or so was cheating on her. Or at the very least, there's another woman in the picture, which, like, either way, that's cheating. It was a mundane day. I mean, like, she works as a paralegal. She doesn't necessarily love her job, but, like, somehow her contract gets renewed every year. It was like a Friday and she was gonna get groceries, and when she was shopping, she saw this box of chocolates, and she figured, like, I had a hard week. Being a paralegal kind of sucks. Why not? She goes home, and her husband Garv, you know, they're just like having their typical small talk, and he's like, oh, like, what'd you get? And he's taking things out, and he's like, oh my god, wait, these chocolates, they're following us. And Maggie looks at him. She's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you remember, it was at that time we were, and then suddenly, like, the color drains from his face, and he's like, oh shoot, like, I really messed up, because he mixed up another memory, it's a seemingly intimate memory, with another woman, with his wife. The thing is that, like, Maggie, it takes a minute for her to process it, because she's like, wait, oh my god, he's cheating on me, there's another woman. And it is the most awkward night ever. Like, they're not speaking, they just have their night routine at like 6 p.m. and they're lying side by side, just like in their bed. It's so awkward. And Maggie, she's not screaming, she's not crying, she's kind of devoid of emotion because she's in shock, honestly. And I feel like part of the reason why she's not like completely going ballistic is because, like, they had been in trouble for a while. And, like, nothing had happened, though. Like, they, you know, they were still in their routine, and it was a couple weeks ago where it really clicked for Maggie, like, oh, shoot, our relationship is actually in trouble. It felt like it felt like the connection was severed, but because they had been in this, like, routine together for 7 years, like, they were just going through the motions. Maggie thought that they could, like, save it, but I mean, with this, what do you do? Well, Garv says the worst possible thing he can say. He says sorry. Like, it is pitch black, they're sleeping or trying to sleep, and they're lying down, and he says that, which, it's like, you like, no denial, no nothing, like, okay, so it really did happen, alright, dang. And it just kind of gets worse for Maggie from there, because that Monday, she gets fired from her job. Well, okay, not fired, because, like, as I said, she works, like, via contract, so her contract didn't get renewed, so, like, basically fired. She's out of a job is the bottom line. And with that, it's like, okay, like, my husband's cheating on me, so obviously we have to get a divorce, like, I need to move out, and, like, where do you go when, like, everything in your life is going to crap? You go home, like, to your parents. And that's exactly what she does. And they have a very surprisingly amicable, calm discussion of, like, okay, like, who gets what? Like, okay, you'll get the house, deal with the mortgage, da-da-da, like, I'll pay for this, that, like, our assets, whatever. It's very brief. I mean, they still have to talk to a lawyer and everything, but that, you know. And she goes home. And something to know about Maggie's family. They're like, it's like a very loving family and stuff, but, like, they're all a mess. I mean that with the most respect and love, but, like, all her sisters are a mess. Like, you would expect all her sisters to, like, okay, this sounds really bad, but, like, you would expect her sisters to go through what Maggie's going through right now and, like, be not cookie cutter and, like, ruin their lives. Not saying that, like, getting divorced is gonna ruin your life, but, like, you get it. And she goes home, and her family, they're all watching this, like, game show, and they're so engrossed in it, they barely hear her come in until they see her, and they're like, oh, Maggie, what a surprise, like, hi. And they're all there, like, all her sisters and her parents, so she rips the band-aid off, and she's like, Garv and I are splitting up. And they're so engrossed in the show, and, like, it's Maggie, like, of course she wouldn't do that. And then she says it again, and they're like, yeah, I get it, you probably got in a really bad fight, trust me, your father and I, the fights we've gotten into, but trust me, it's just a rough patch, you'll get over it. No, he cheated, there's another woman, he cheated. And then they're like, oh. And she goes upstairs, and they're all kind of, like, watching her go. And then Maggie just sleeps. Like, she doesn't even cry. She, like, I think her body's way of dealing with, like, the shock is just sleeping. And the funny thing is that her other sister, Anna, she's also going through a breakup. And Anna, she cannot sleep. Like, she is just sobbing constantly. And so Maggie, she's sleeping literally 23 hours a day. And one day her mom comes in, and she's like, okay, you gotta get out of the house. Like, you have got to see this on you. Like, do you remember what the world looks like? And, like, she's not trying to, like, kick her out or anything, but it's, like, that's really concerning. So finally Maggie's like, okay. She has a little bit more energy because she's been sleeping for a week straight, literally. And she goes on a walk. And mind you, she, like, if you're going through that kind of breakup, like, your mind is not focused on, like, oh, how can I look cute? I feel like that would actually be like a healthy coping mechanism. But anyways, regardless, the reason I say this is because, of course, this is when she meets him. Garv? No. Shay Delaney. And who the hell is Shay? We'll get into him. But it had been, I think, literally 15 years since she last saw him. And, like, she always kind of would play in her head, like, what would I say if I saw him again? Like, what would he say? Would he be like, oh, I'm so sorry, like, I want you back, da-da-da? Would they talk things out? Would they talk about the thing? It's actually Maggie that approaches him. Like, she's like taking a walk at a park and he's like packing things up, and clearly you can tell he has kids because, well, first she knew that, but also a wife and 3 kids, but also he has like a car seat in there and all that stuff, so clearly. And she goes up to him and she's like, Shay? And he's like taken aback for a second. He's like, oh my goodness, Maggie, hi, how are you? And, you know, they have typical small talk, and he's like, oh, like, you're good? Okay, I'm glad. And Maggie's like, what about you? How's your wife, the kids? He's like, yeah, they're all great. You know, the kids are, you know how kids can be. And, you know, he's just like, oh, is everyone good? Like, your mom, your dad, you know, your sisters? Mind you, her parents loved Shay. We'll get into that later. And Maggie's like, yeah, we're all good. And Garv's good too. And then they have like a very awkward goodbye. This conversation lasts maybe 2 minutes, if that. And then he drives off, and it's just not as satisfying as she imagined it to be. Like, it wasn't, there was no hostility or anything, but it was just awkward. Like, okay, like with these conversations, you envision like they're gonna ask for me back. They're gonna be like, I've been
thinking about you for the whole 15 years.
And if that doesn't happen, it's kind of disappointing. So she goes back to the house and she tells her parents, like, hey, I ran into Shay. And her mom is so happy. She's like, oh my goodness, it's been so long. We should invite him over, his wife over. It'll be like a little family reunion, almost so fun, so great. Her mom is kind of in love with Shay Delaney, but like her dad can't even be mad about it because her dad is also kind of in love with him. He's very charming. And not, okay, if you watched my story time on this charming man, not like that kind of charming, but just genuinely, like, he's very likable, just naturally, very charismatic, but like not, minus the sinister stuff. And like, this kind of adds insult to injury because they always hated Garv. Like, the way they would describe Garv is like, he has no personality and he hates us and we hate him. And to be fair, Garv kind of does hate her family. Their personalities don't mesh very well. And they, like, both sides have made that abundantly clear. And so, of course, the news of the imminent split, like imminent official split, gets around, and Maggie's getting calls from, like, old friends being like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, what happened? Because everyone wants the tea. And then one of her friends, Emily, her best friend, honestly, calls her and she's like, oh my god, like, I'm so sorry, I heard what happened. You know what you should do? What? You should come out to where I am. You should come out to LA. It'll be fun, just like old times. It'll be really fun. Like, get your mind off things, change of environment. You have no job, right? Yeah, you got fired? Okay, so perfect. Just come. And Maggie doesn't expect to accept, but she just finds herself accepting because, I mean, Emily has a point. Emily, I think, also didn't expect her to accept, but like, she made the invitation and it's gonna be fun. So Emily, she is a film writer in LA, and okay, her work is not going too great, I'm not gonna lie. Like, none of her stuff has been made into any films. She somehow manages to like pay the bills and stuff and live a pretty lavish LA lifestyle, if I do say so myself. But the thing with her is that she almost had a really big break. Like, she wrote this, like, not thriller, but like action romance movie that, if you look at it from like a critic's perspective, I feel like you could argue like this is such a bad movie, but like audiences love it. It's that kind of movie. It got signed, people, like, it was going to be made, and then last second it got dropped. And then lo and behold, 2 months later, her movie was made, except not with her script. Yeah. And since then, she's just been trying to pay the bills, but like, she's still hoping for that break. So Maggie gets to LA, and Emily, of course, she's like, okay, so tell me what happened. Tell me about, like, why'd y'all break up? Are you really breaking up? Like, what's going on? And Maggie, she wants to talk about literally anything else but that. She'd rather tell you about, like, getting her to... And luckily for her, Emily is so swamped and she's waiting on a call from her agent, David Crow. So she's like, okay, we'll get back to this. And she gives her a little tour of the neighborhood and stuff. There's like frat boys living next to them, but like they're chill. New age spiritual people, and then some other neighbors that like don't leave their house. But they don't bother anyone from what they know, well, from what Emily knows of. So, you know. And that night, Maggie sleeps terribly. Like, it's a new house, it's dark. Emily leaves the TV on really loud. I mean, she's watching it, but, and like, you're there essentially rent-free, like she just feels uncomfortable being like, hey, can you turn that down? And then it reminds her of Garv, because she could just be her most insane, unhinged self with him, but she ends up falling asleep. And the next morning, I will say, the bright weather and sunny weather of LA does put Maggie in a much better mood. So while Emily works, she just goes on a walk at the beach. She gets a Klondike bar from like this ice cream man who looks like a model, so he's probably an aspiring something. But she just tries to enjoy her day. And honestly, it's better to be heartbroken in a pretty place than where it's raining. Maggie gets back and they like chit chat, catch up. And then Emily tells her that she sometimes runs into him, Shay. Because Shay works as some like something like behind the scenes, and so for work he has to be in LA a lot. Maggie's like, oh, okay, cool, thanks for letting me know. And like he's pretty high powered, so like if Emily really needed help, like she could reach out to him, that kind of thing. But that's a very like last resort. So they end up going out that night, and Maggie meets Emily's friends Lara and Justin. Lara, she's lesbian, and she volunteered this information, and she works like behind the scenes. She works like in production, I think, and she is so beautiful. Justin, he's the indispensable fat guy. His words. And okay, so you know how like in movies, they always have, like in action movies or whatever, it's like you'll always have some like random extra that gets like really early on. He's that guy in every single movie. And you might be thinking, okay, but he's not like a big star. Okay, but he's getting really consistent work that pays really, really well. So he's happy. And unlike other people in LA, he can have whatever the heck he wants. So it's a win for him, honestly. Next day, same routine as follows. Maggie goes to the beach, and when she gets back to the house, there's a very oddly attractive man there. This is Troy. Troy is Emily's best guy friend. And this was the way Maggie describes him. His features are conventionally unattractive, but the way it's all put together on his face and like his energy and his vibe just makes him so attractive. Like you enter a room that he's in, it's like your eyes will immediately go to him because it's like, what is it about that dude? Like, why is he kind of like, oh, that man is so cute. Troy and Emily, they have just like a good banter going on. They're talking about the most obscure random films that only film snobs know about. And they're raving about these films. And of course, the things that Maggie loves, they're like, oh, such trash, terrible writing, horrible cinematography. Like, okay. And when he leaves, Maggie asks about him. So the next day, Maggie, she's like acclimating to LA life because she's starting her glow up, her makeover, which is prompted by Lara because she's like, you're beautiful, so pretty, but like we could elevate. So she gets her hair done and they go shopping, and then for dinner they all go out to like a really fancy restaurant. It's really, the food's great, and then except it's kind of ruined though because Maggie is then introduced to Kirsty, who is the epitome of everything awful about LA, all wrapped into one tiny little perfect looking package. While they're eating, like the bread appetizer comes out, and this girl starts talking about like keto diets and how like in such a backhanded way, it's like, oh, it must be nice not having to worry about what you look like or like being able to eat whatever you want. Like, pow pow. Like why? What's even worse is that she and Troy are allegedly going at it, but then she leaves early for some reason, probably to go like do stuff with Troy. And so Maggie's like, okay, this is the first guy that I find attractive, and like what, like, and he has like a cute nickname for her, like he calls her Irish, and like just like the way he talks to her and stuff, it's like cute and kind of flirty, so like maybe not. But then Emily reassures her, like, bro, he's married to his work. Like, he can't have a girlfriend because he's so invested in his work. And I mean, so is everyone in the city, but like to him it's another degree. So like he's not gonna date her, like absolutely not. Like, and I'm not gonna lie, that does make Maggie feel a little bit better. Except that feeling better, it comes to a crash because she gets a call from her mom. Her mom's like, hey, so I don't know if I was going to tell you this or not, but I feel like if I were in this situation, I would want to know. And I saw Garv with a girl, and they were walking. And it's like, okay, maybe his cousin, and he had his arm around her. And they were like kind of all over each other in the middle of the street on a random like Tuesday in the middle of nowhere in Ireland. Okay, maybe not the middle of nowhere, but like so in a more urban area, but still, why? And Maggie's like, okay, thanks for telling me. Because, okay, it's one thing to know something, but then when you have, like, concrete proof, it's like, I don't know if I want it, like, ow, that just hurts a lot more, you know? And then she gets a call from her dad, relaying her the same exact message. And then calls from her sisters, and some neighbor just tell it. No, I don't think the neighbor called, but literally just all her sisters. So she has to hear this message like 3 or 4 more times of like, Garv was with another girl. He was all over her. I'm so sorry. Do you want me to slash his tires? And it's like, no, I mean, that wouldn't solve anything. And oh my God, her most unhinged sister, Helen, is like, you want me to burn his house down? So the thing is like, she is so unhinged, she will do it. And Maggie's like, no, that's my house too. And she's like, oh yeah, you're right. Okay, bye. So to get Maggie's mind off of it, Emily takes her to this like random foreign film movie thing, and the Eastern European accents of the movie just remind her of Garv again. Of the rabbits. Not the real ones, but the slipper ones. Because basically she had these like rabbit slippers that he got for her, and he would talk like as if he were them, and they were named like Vlada and Vladimir. And he would talk like in an Eastern European accent as if they were talking to each other, and it sounds really cringy, but like I feel like if you're in that situation, it's like cute. But about the real rabbits, I guess you could say that the rabbits were kind of the start of the end for them, because okay, the core issue isn't just the rabbits, it's the fact that Garv really wanted kids. And I mean, they're in their this was starting when they were in their like late 20s, and like the thing, like Maggie just, it's not to say that she doesn't have any maternal instincts or no maternal bone in her body, but she just, like, she felt like, okay, if we're gonna have kids, I want to feel really excited about it, not like, no, absolutely not, pregnancy's horrifying, I would rather than have to go through that kind of thing, which, like, I feel you, girl. And, like, you know, like, she doesn't want to drag her feet, and so she buys herself a little more time. She's like, you know what, let's wait until we're, like, just, you know, talk to me about it in, like, 3 years, because maybe the maternal thing will kick in by then. And it doesn't. And then one day he just showed up with 2 rabbits. I'm not even kidding. Like, they had no discussion of getting a pet, none of that. He just brought home these 2 rabbits. Maggie was like, okay, what the hell is this? Like, we didn't talk about it. Hello, responsibility. And he's like, oh yeah, no, you're right, I'm so sorry, we can return them, it's fine. But obviously, like, Maggie can't be like, yeah, return them. So she like, it wasn't her choice to get them, is the point. And this man, all he would talk about, all he cared about were these damn rabbits. Like, and okay, you might think like, no, it can't be that bad. Like, he bought them so many toys for them to like play with, and then he read that like, oh, they need time outside, so he got them all these like an outside like house, like a rabbit house, and he got them all these like, he made sure they were getting their supplements, he made sure, like, he got them cute little matching rabbit outfits. And like, if one of the rabbits wasn't eating enough, he would get really concerned. Literally, it was like, where did my husband go? Where did the dating go? Where did the romance go? Because is like, all he cares about are these stupid rabbits. And like, when Maggie complained to her friends about this, at first they were like, yeah, sure. And then they had dinner with them, and literally, like, not kidding, let's say throughout this like hour-long dinner, or like just the first hour, all he would talk about were those stupid rabbits. And like, her friend was really, really blunt, kind of to a fault, but in this case it was good, because she was like, hey, remember how we love when you talk about work? And a rule for like hanging out with Garv is that like, he cannot talk about work because it's so boring, no one wants to hear it. And he's like, oh, am I talking about the rabbits that much? And then like, her friends gave her a look of like, oh my god, this is like, what is wrong with him? This is terrible, you're right. So that was the start of their downfall, you could say. Their real downfall came when Garv forced her to get pregnant when she didn't want to, and she was afraid. It sounds, I was gonna say it sounds worse than it actually is, but no, that's pretty bad. Okay, he didn't like force himself on her or anything like that. No, like, it was a consensual process, but yeah, she just wasn't ready. And so 30 rolls around, she's still not ready. And so she's pushing this conversation off for as long as she can. And I think they're like 33 at this point. And then he's like, okay, like, I want to talk about it. And he's like, why don't you want to have a baby and stuff? And she's like, I'm scared. And he's like, okay, that's fair. Of what? And she's like, okay, well, what if it hates us? What if like it gets unalived? What if this happens? What if that happens? What if like all these awful things? And he's like, okay. And then Maggie's like, oh no, I'm not done. And then also the actual process of being pregnant, that literally sounds like a curse. Like, that sounds like hell came up and inserted himself literally into women, because why? Like, that literally sounds like the worst possible thing that could ever happen to anyone. Awful, awful, awful. If you've seen the list on TikTok, she's not entirely wrong. And Garv is like, okay, taking it in. He's like, well, are there any positives you see to it? And Maggie sits there for a second. Like, she takes a good 5 minutes to come up with an answer, because like, she's genuinely thinking about it. Like, she's not gonna give some flippant answer, but this is her genuine answer. She's like, well, I could eat all the chocolate I want without guilt. And Garv is like, you know what? I'll take what I can get. And then Maggie more begrudgingly, but they get pregnant. Maggie gets pregnant, let me specify, and it's awful. Like, she feels not like all the terrible symptoms of pregnancy, she has them all. She feels so nauseous, she feels awful, her mood swings are everywhere. She can't even eat the chocolate she wants because she throws everything up. And she's honest, she constantly to Garv, she's like, I hate you for this, like, I hate you for putting me through this, I hate you. And Garv is just like being an angel because he really has no choice. He's like, I know. And then I don't know what changed. There was just this switch. And suddenly Maggie saw it as a miracle. And she's like, wait, oh my God, like, hold up. My body can produce another human being. Like, honestly, that's miraculous. Like, that truly, like, nature is miraculous. And suddenly the days are brighter, her skin is glowing, and it's a miracle. Like, she is so excited for this kid now. She's like, oh my God, wait, we're gonna be parents. I'm gonna be a mom. Wait. Oh my God. Wait, genuine, like, she understands why, like, pregnant women are so, like, this is such a miracle thing. And because truly it is. But this excitement is rather short-lived because around the 8th or 9th week, she goes to the bathroom and then there's just red, bright crimson everywhere in the toilet, but you get it. And she's like, oh shoot, oh crap, something is wrong. They rush to the hospital and Garv is like trying to tell her, he's trying to like calm her down, even though he himself, he's like, oh shoot, like what's going on? But unfortunately they miscarried. And obviously they're both distraught, and Maggie, she's so guilt-ridden because she's like, this happened because I didn't want it. And Garv is like, but you did want it. And Maggie's like, not in the beginning. And then he just kind of doesn't say anything because I mean, that's not wrong, but that's like, you can't say that that's why that happened. Like, don't put that on yourself. Like it's like no one really knew what happened, honestly, but it was terrible. But present day, things are looking up for Maggie a little bit because she and Emily go to this party and finally some action with Troy. Like, they're flirting with each other kind of the whole night. Kirsty's not there, and like you can feel the tension, I feel like. And he's like, oh, look, I'll give you a ride home. And, well, he gives her a ride to his house, and they have fun. And Maggie, she enjoys herself so much. Like, she's like, oh my God, like, so, like, okay. Like, very much so, like, I still got it. And, well, that too is kind of short-lived because the next few days, he does not call. And Emily, she's waiting on a call from Larry, who's some producer guy, some, like, executive person. Oh, this is really good news for Emily, though, because her script is like gonna get picked up and she's gonna get 90K just for like writing it, and then if it's actually made into a movie, she'll be making 500K. So love that for her. And when she picks up the phone and it's Larry after, like, she can tell that Maggie's really disappointed, and she's like, oh wait, Troy? Oh my, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And Maggie's like, no, it's fine. Like, wiping tears, not literally, but she just feels so stupid. Like, insult over injury. Like, you're going through like, in her mind, it's like, I'm going through a divorce and this guy rejects me. Like, bruh, really? But she doesn't really have much time to dwell on this because she gets a lovely call from her lovely parents, and they're telling her, we're gonna come visit. Like, in LA? Yep. You know, it just seems so nice there. We could go to Disneyland. It's gonna be fun. So yeah, expect us in a week. Like, okay, thanks for the heads up. And I mean, to make matters worse, Emily then, she like comes to Maggie with like her tail in between her legs, like tucked between her legs, and she's like, look, I hate this dude, like I hate his guts, but I'm just so desperate for work. And look, you know, he's like pretty high up there, like in terms of influence and power and stuff when it comes to this industry. So is it okay if I ask Shay Delaney for help? I'm so sorry. It's okay. You can say no. It's okay. But he like, this is my please. And Maggie's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Because the thing is like, if she said no, Emily wouldn't do it. But like, come on, this is your friend's like livelihood. And then Emily immediately calls Shay. And, you know, they agree to like to some like work dinner or whatever. And he'll like ask around and do what he can. So, I mean, things are looking up for Emily, but Maggie, she's just like stewing in her own misery. I mean, understandably so. Misery loves company because then Laura comes over because her girlfriend dumped her. Well, okay. So her girlfriend was just kind of experimenting. She's just using her for her own exploration because her girlfriend was married, or is married, to a man. Not great. So she's sobbing and, you know, they're just comforting each other. And suddenly they're like getting really intimate. Like, their foreheads are touching. And then Emily walks in and they like spring apart. And Emily sees this and she's like, no, you cannot do this. Your mom is coming in a week. No. But she can't really give too much of a pep talk and can't scare her too much because she has a party to plan. Like some like work related party. I don't really know how it works, but they're planning a party. And Troy comes with the worst B word in LA, Kirsty, which like, ow, insult to injury, hello. And Shay comes and he like avoids Maggie like the plague. Like as if she did something so terrible to him. Like, sir, I mean, to be fair, like he and Emily genuinely have to talk about like work details and stuff, so she tries to let it go as well as she can, but she's having difficulty with it because like, bro, really? Like can we talk about it? Oh, we'll get to what it is. Like, it feels like she's being rejected by two men in the same night. I don't know if it's like the breakup grief. I don't know if it's the feeling of rejection. I don't know if she's going through some crisis. I don't like, or hormones, but she kisses Lara on the mouth at the end of the party. When it, like, after everyone else has left and now it's just the main characters, Troy, Maggie, Emily, Shay, and Lara who's leaving. Like, not just like a little peck. Like, they're kind of like, you know, making out in front of them, and Troy and Shay and Emily I think is the most appalled by this, not because there's anything wrong with being lesbian, but because it's like, girl, you're straight, you need to handle yourself better. Like, your mom is gonna be absolutely pissed if she finds out that I let you have this kind of lesbian love affair. Like, get your act together. And so everyone leaves, and now it's just Maggie and Emily says this to her, and she's like, dude, like, get it together. Like, you have less than a week. Come on, snap out of it. And Maggie's like, no, I think I'm bi. And Emily's like, oh my God, no, you're not. Like, you're just not in your right mind. That's what this is. And Maggie's like, no. The thing is that Maggie has more than just her relationship with Garv to grieve. Let me explain. So, you know, after they miscarried, they try again. And they're lucky enough to get pregnant again. It's like, okay, we can like have our baby. It'd be like family, all that stuff. And they hold off on telling anyone until the 12th week because like, apparently it's like, okay, wait until then to tell people because then like the likelihood of miscarriage is just way less. And they do tell people and everyone's so excited for them and stuff, and honestly it's like they passed the 8th and 9th week mark, so like they should be in the clear. You would think that such a terrible loss would only happen once, and that's just not the case because they miscarry again. And truly, like, Maggie nonstop sobbed for a week. Like, no exaggeration, she did not sleep for a week because she was just heavy heave sobbing. And she felt like she had to take on Garv's grief as well because, like, he was somehow able to still run the house. Like, he was, like, you know, keeping the dishes washed, like, making sure the bills get paid. He's a lifesaver, honestly. And she kind of felt like it was her fault still because it's like during their initial pregnancy, because she felt like, because she didn't want it at first, she still felt like this was like her punishment, which is like, no, that's not how that works. But that's just where her mindset was at. And people are giving them like the typical condolences, like, I'm so sorry, da-da-da. And then someone suggests that they go on a vacation. Because if anything is going to bring them close together, like, you know, it's better to be heartbroken in a sunny place. And so they book this vacation and it does the exact opposite. It is the worst possible vacation ever. First of all, they lose Maggie's luggage. And because it's like a lax island, they do not care. They're like, okay, well, we'll get to it when we can. And to make matters worse, it was raining the entire time. It's like, I came here for sun. Why is it raining? And the thing with the luggage is that they had these teal shoes that Maggie absolutely adored. Garv literally ran around town looking for these shoes because, like, honestly, just because Maggie wanted them. And so he made it his, like, life's mission to find them. And he did find them for her. So they're that much more special to her. And luckily, the bag did show up, but it didn't show up until the end of their vacation. The bright side, I guess, of this, you know, luggage fiasco was that at least they had something to talk about, something to bond over, because on the flight back, they had nothing to say to each other. Not once in their relationship ever did they ever not have anything to talk about. And then Garv kind of became a person that Maggie didn't really recognize anymore. Because, like, okay, the thing with Garv is that he has always been a very, like, uppity, cheery person, positive, seeing the bright side and everything. And then one day they were just, like, watching TV and he asked, like, what's the point? And Maggie's like, huh? Excuse me? And he's like, okay, go to work, all this. Okay, like, what is the point? And, like, don't worry, he wasn't gonna do anything, but it was, like, this was the first time she ever ever witnessed him in their years of marriage talking like this ever. Even like in dating, he never spoke like this. So it was really jarring for her. And Maggie just felt them slipping apart more and more. Like that seemingly unbreakable like connection that they have, it was gone. And that is how they fell into just this mundane routine of, you know, come home, how was your day, eat dinner together, but like run-of-the-mill small talk that like just something was off. And they just weren't talking about it. And that's when Maggie felt, we are in trouble. And she felt like they could salvage their relationship. And then Truffle Woman happened. So, but Maggie doesn't have too much time to dwell on this because Laura comes over to talk about their relationship. And like, okay, I'm not gonna lie, their first date was so awkward because like after she kissed Laura and stuff and after they like made out or whatever, literally I think like the day before her mom was getting there, maybe it was day of, but she was realizing that, oh my god, I'm not lesbian, I miss the feeling of a man. Her words, not mine. And she's realizing, oh my god, no, this is just like my reaction, like I'm not actually lesbian, oh my god. And but the same thing just happened to her, like with her girlfriend just experimenting, like, oh my god, that means I would be doing the same thing to her, so I can't break up with her. And Laura comes over and Maggie feels like she has to be intimate, so she's like pulling her in, trying to like, you know. And Laura is actually the one who's like, okay, whoa, slow down there. And she's like, look, I don't know how to say this, but, and essentially she breaks up with her. Like, I mean, to be fair, it was like one date, but like because they were friends and Emily's their friends, so it's like you can't just ghost in this situation. I mean, technically you can do whatever you want, but do you really want to deal with those repercussions? So Laura breaks up with her and Maggie is so relieved and she admits it. And Laura was like, what? Dude, I felt so guilty for breaking this off and you wanted to break it off too? But then they like joke about it and it's very evident that they're gonna still be friends after, like genuinely, because it's like no feelings were involved. And Emily, after she finds out that they broke up, is so relieved. She was like, see, I told you were being crazy. And oh my god, can you imagine what your mom would have done to us? It would have been ugly.